You have seen this moment. A second and a strong, logical man suddenly turns into a capricious child or a cold, alienated tyrant. It happens suddenly. He becomes petty, touchy, absolutely irrational. You try to talk to him but feel as if you have gotten dirty in something sticky. This causes not just anger but deep, almost physical disgust and misunderstanding. Who is this person? Most women call this toxicity abuse or narcissism, but these are just labels that explain nothing. To understand this metamorphosis, we need to descend into the darkest minds of the male unconscious. Carl Jung left us precise blueprints of this dirty territory. He knew that this force seizing a man is not just bad character. It is one of the most powerful ancient archetypes. In the next hour, we will open up this mechanism. You will understand why the strongest man can become the weakest creature in an instant. You will learn what role, perhaps a tragic one, you unconsciously play in this drama. And most importantly, you will receive keys. Keys to stop drowning in his emotional swamp and get out onto solid ground. This knowledge might be unpleasant, but it is exactly what liberates. If you are ready to see the truth about the male soul, we begin. Let us slow down and enter the space of your evening. An ordinary evening, when there are no wars or obvious catastrophes. He returns from work. Perhaps he is even smiling, and it seems that today everything will be fine. But then a shift occurs. It can be a trifle invisible to an outsider eye. A cup placed in the wrong spot. Your question asked with the wrong intonation. Or simply your gaze that lingered on him for a split second longer than necessary. And instantly the air in the room changes. You know this sensation in the body. Your muscles tense up, breathing becomes shallow. You begin that exhausting quiet dance that we call walking on eggshells. Every step threatens a crack. You are afraid to make an unnecessary movement so as not to provoke a collapse. But the scariest thing is not his words, but what hangs between you. Silence reigns in the room, but it is not empty. It is thick, heavy, and poisonous. This is real emotional smog that begins to ooze from him, filling every cubic centimeter of space. You physically feel how the atmosphere becomes viscous, sticky. It is here that a feeling of deep dissonance is born. Before you is an adult, strong man. But the energy he radiates is not masculine. This is not the rage of a warrior protecting his boundaries. Such rage can be respected. No, this is a shapeless, capricious hysteria of a prima donna locked in a male body. This is raw, undifferentiated emotion. You feel that if you try to speak to him now, you will simply get dirty in this, as if you touch something rotting. He does not attack you openly, he simply poisons the water you drink. In these moments, you most likely started feverishly going over events in memory. You thought, where did I stumble? What did I say wrong? You tried to find a rational grain in his claims. You built logical chains to justify yourself or understand him. Stop. I want you to hear this right now, and let these words become your support. You have not gone crazy. What you have encountered is not a dialogue between two adults. You tried to find logic where pure, uncontrolled affect rules. You tried to speak with a person, but spoke with the elements. And the fact that you could not get through is not your mistake. It is the nature of the storm. It is important to understand what is happening to him is not just bad character. And it is definitely not the result of you being a bad wife. This is an ancient, ruthless psychic mechanism that Carl Jung called possession. Right now, this is happening to millions of couples. Love is being destroyed in the silence of kitchens, not because of a lack of feelings, but because no one explained to us how this invisible force works, seizing the consciousness of even the most loving men. Here lies a paradox that frightens and mesmerizes at the same time. This dirty weakness, these hysterics, this poison, this irrationality is actually not a defect of his construction. It is a distorted, rotting form of his greatest power. What looks like hatred toward you is actually his total inability to cope with the depth of his own soul. In these moments, he is not the executioner, he is the victim. Look at this differently, he is not fighting you. He is losing the battle with what is inside him. Imagine a man washed away by a huge wave into the open sea of the unconscious. He is floundering, he is choking. And when you try to approach him with logic or comfort, he reacts as any drowning person reacts. In his blind panic and terror before his own emptiness, he grabs the rescuer and pulls him to the bottom. His aggression, his hurtful words are the convulsions of a man who has lost the ground under his feet. He tries to lean on you, but does it so clumsily and rudely that instead of support, he causes pain. He is drowning, and his only strategy for salvation is to drag you with him into this abyss. To stop being an eternal victim of these destructive swings, we must radically change tactics. While you react to his intonations, grievances, and silence, you are fighting symptoms. You are trying to hold back a storm wave with bare hands. It is not just useless, it drains you to the bottom. We must stop looking at the surface. We must stop listening to what he says and see who exactly is speaking in him in these moments. We need to look under the mask of that normality he wears during the day. Let us coolly analyze what elements this psychic dirt consists of and why it is so dangerous. Jung not only described this phenomenon, he gave it a precise definition, and this knowledge will become your main tool of defense. To defeat this delusion, we need to stop fearing it and start studying it. Let us put emotions aside. It is time to take an analytical scalpel and look at how this mechanism works from the inside. Let us honestly look at your arsenal. When this fog descends on a man, most women instinctively choose one of three strategies, and each of them is a trap. Strategy 1, the rescuer. You see that he is out of sorts and try to warm him up. You ask what happened, you offer tea, you try to be soft and helpful. You think your care will melt this ice, but instead of gratitude, you get irritation. Why? Because in this state, any care is perceived by him as control or intrusiveness. Strategy 2, the lawyer. This is the most common mistake of smart women. You hear his absurd accusations and turn on logic. You say, wait, that is not true. I did not say that. The facts are such. You bring him arguments worthy of the Supreme Court, you build a flawless defense. But he does not hear you. His arguments become even more ridiculous, and his voice even more shrill. Strategy 3, the mirror. You cannot stand the injustice and get offended in return. You slam the door, you cry, you scream. Do you know what unites these strategies? Their total uselessness. You make one fundamental mistake, you try to interact with his ego, with that reasonable, conscious part of the personality that makes decisions and analyzes information. But the paradox of the situation is that, in the moment of possession by a mood, the ego is turned off. There is no one at the control panel of his mind. The captain has left the bridge and the ship is steered by autopilot. Trying to reach him with logic at this moment is like trying to read a lecture on ethics to an erupting volcano. Or if you like, it is an attempt to speak in refined Latin with an enraged bear. The bear does not understand Latin. He reacts only to movements and smells of fear. You think you are extinguishing the fire with the water of your reasonable words, but actually you are pouring pure gasoline into the fire, because affect, and that is exactly what you are dealing with now, feeds on any of your reactions. It does not care about the truth. It needs energy. And when you start to make excuses, you simply feed the demon that has seized your man. To understand the nature of this bear, we need to look at what he hides so carefully. And here we approach one of the cruelest laws of the psyche. What we suppress does not disappear. It goes underground, goes wild, and starts to control us from the shadows. Look closely at the very structure of this dirty weakness. What does it consist of? Touchiness, irrational mood swings, toxic hints, capriciousness, the desire to be guessed without words. Let us be honest, these are not masculine traits. These are caricatured, distorted traits of immature femininity. It sounds paradoxical, but dirty weakness is the rebellion of his suppressed inner woman. We have been taught for centuries that a man must be a rock, without tears, without sentiments, pure logic and will. But the psyche strives for wholeness. If a man cuts off his ability to feel his softness and empathy, these qualities do not die. They degrade. They descend to an archaic, primitive level. Inside the sternest, logical, buttoned-up man often lives not a wise woman, but a capricious, unloved teenage girl. And the harder he suppresses emotions in his conscious life, the more furious this inner figure becomes. The law of inverse proportion works here. The thicker the armor of his external masculinity, the more capricious and infantile the princess locked in his dungeon. When he is tired, when his ego is weakened by stress or alcohol, this inner woman breaks free. She takes revenge for being ignored. And then you see this frightening contrast, the body of an adult man, the voice of your husband, but the intonations and claims of a 5-year-old child who was not bought a toy. His toxicity, his mood is just a symptom. It is smoke from a fire. The real reason is his tragic detachment from his own heart. A man who does not own his feelings inevitably becomes their slave. He thinks he killed weakness in himself, but actually he just handed the keys to control to the most hysterical part of his soul. Let us move from theory to direct evidence from your life. Right now, I want you to conduct a thought experiment. Remember the last time this happened. It could be yesterday evening or a quarrel last weekend. Reconstruct this scene in memory. But now I ask you to look at it not as a participant, but as an outside observer, as a detective viewing a recording from a surveillance camera. Turn off the sound of his words. Forget about the meaning of his claims. We have already found out that there is no logic there. Instead, focus on the form. What happened to his voice? Did you notice how the timbre changed? How the chesty, confident male notes disappeared and shrill, high, hysterical intonations appeared? Look at his posture. Did he suddenly become smaller? Did he shrink into a ball of resentment? Or conversely, did he puff up, start stomping his feet and slamming doors, demanding attention? And now ask yourself the main, most uncomfortable question: who did he remind you of in this second? Was it your husband, that strong, reliable partner you chose? Or did a capricious 5-year-old boy suddenly appear before you whose mother did not buy ice cream? Or maybe you saw the features of a scandalous, quarrelsome woman who revels in her drama. Look into your memory honestly. At that moment when his eyes filled with this strange coldness or resentment, was it still your man? Or was someone else looking at you through his face? I want you to pause this video right now, take a deep breath, and answer yourself honestly who stood before you. You will see the frightening truth in the moments of these quarrels. You are not interacting with a man. A creepy substitution of personality occurs. You are trying to negotiate with a ghost who has temporarily seized control of his body. And until you acknowledge this fact, you will continue to bang your head against the wall, trying to conduct an adult dialogue with an offended child. That stranger you just saw in your thought experiment is not a figment of your imagination. It is not a metaphor and not a literary device. You have encountered a phenomenon that has been known to mystics and alchemists for centuries, but only one person was able to map it onto scientific psychology. Carl Gustav Jung made a revolutionary discovery. He discovered that in the unconscious of every man without exception lives an autonomous female image. This is not just a set of female qualities like softness or sentimentality. This is a full-fledged subpersonality living inside the male psyche. Jung gave it a name that sounds like a spell: anima. Anima is the soul of a man. It is his function of connection with life, with the depth of emotions, with the irrational flow of being. In its healthy state, she is his muse, his inspirer, a guide to creativity and love. But here lies the tragedy of the modern man. Culture teaches him to suppress his inner life, to rely only on logos and steel. He ignores his anima. He locks her in the basement of his subconscious. And what happens to a woman who has been locked in a dungeon and ignored for years? She does not disappear. She mutates. She hardens. She turns from a beautiful maiden into a vengeful witch or a quarrelsome shrew. It is this dissatisfied, rejected inner woman who creates that very dirt from which you suffocate. When the anima is in the shadow, she begins a guerrilla war against the owner and his real relationships. Jung warned us what we do not realize comes to us from the outside as fate. In the case of a man, it comes as a mood. That dirty weakness is the voice of his sick anima, which has seized control of his mind. She takes revenge on him for inattention, but you take the blows. Now the enemy has a name, and this changes everything, because nothing can be done with bad character, but one can work with an archetype. Let us see how exactly this inner woman seizes power and why she chooses such sophisticated methods of torture. To understand how to fight this enemy, one needs to understand its anatomy. What is the anima really? In a healthy psyche, the anima is not just a woman inside. It is a function of connection. It is a bridge between the hard, dry island of the male ego and the huge living ocean of the unconscious. It is the anima that gives a man a taste for life, the ability to love, to feel the beauty of a sunset, and intuitively understand hidden meanings. Without her, a man is a dry, logical mechanism, a biorobot. Jung described the evolution of the anima. Ideally, she should grow together with the man, passing through 4 stages, from the purely biological, instinctive Eve, through the romantic Helen and righteous Mary, to the wise Sophia. But the tragedy of modernity is that for most men, the anima gets stuck at the very first archaic stage of development. She remains primitive, undifferentiated, and wild. And this is where what Jung called anima possession occurs. How does it look clinically? Jung gave us a brilliant formula: anima in a man manifests as a mood. Remember this: if the animus in a woman is a hard, unshakable, often erroneous opinion, then the anima in a man is a viscous, fluid, irrational mood. When the primitive anima seizes power, she acts like a capricious shrew. Imagine the most quarrelsome, petty, gossiping old woman who is eternally dissatisfied with everything. It is this creature that wakes up inside your masculine partner. In the positive, the anima is inspiration. In the negative, it is poison, corroding relationships. Jung described the negative anima as a force generating touchiness, sentimentality, vanity, and toxicity. She creates a cocoon of heavy forebodings and suspicions around the man. The best metaphor for understanding this state is the lens. The anima is a lens through which a man looks at the world and at you. When he is in resource, this lens is clean, and he sees you as beautiful and the world full of possibilities. But in the moment of possession, the anima smears this lens with dirt, and so suddenly the whole world changes outlines. This dirty lens distorts reality beyond recognition. A neutral remark through this lens looks like cruel criticism. Your silence looks like contempt. Your request looks like an order. The scariest thing in this optical illusion is that the man believes his eyes. He does not understand that the problem is in the glasses that were put on him from the inside. He is sincerely convinced that the world has suddenly become ugly and hostile. He projects this internal dirt onto you. She envelops his mind in a fog in which any gesture of yours seems like betrayal and any word like an insult. He stops seeing the real woman before him. He sees only an ugly caricature drawn on the glass of his own inflamed soul. Let me tell you a story that may seem frighteningly familiar to you. This is the story of Alexander. In his social life, Alexander is a titan, a successful architect 45 years old. His mind works like a laser. He designs complex structures, manages budgets in millions. He is respected for hardness and clarity of thinking. At work, he is the embodiment of logos, pure reason and will. But then Friday evening comes. Alexander returns home. He is tired. His psychic immune system is weakened by stress. He is waiting for dinner, and a catastrophe occurs. His wife, worn out with children and work, forgot to buy his favorite sort of cheese. Just cheese. The price of the issue is 300 rubles, a trifle which in a normal state he would not even remember. But at this moment, that very click happens inside Alexander. The lens clouds over. He does not scream. He does not break dishes. That would be too masculine, too obvious. No, he does something worse. He falls silent. His face turns to stone. The corners of his lips go down in a tragic grimace of a martyr. He pushes the plate away. He is no longer hungry. He sighs heavily, showing with his whole appearance what an unbearable burden he carries. The great architect who builds skyscrapers suddenly disappeared. In the kitchen sits an offended boy, convinced that the whole world conspired to deprive him of his only joy. A 3-day siege of silence begins. He answers in monosyllables. He looks through his wife. He radiates icy cold. What is happening in his head at this moment? The wife thinks he is angry because of the cheese. But this is not so. In his head, a voice sounds. It is the voice of the negative anima, and it whispers terrible things to him. Listen to this internal monologue that spins in his head like an endless record. See, she does not care about you. You are just a function to her. You bring money, you build a house, but she cannot remember one small request. You are needed by no one. No one appreciates you. You are alone in this cold world. She does not love you, she uses you. The anima takes a tiny fact, the absence of cheese, and inflates it to the scale of a Greek tragedy about betrayal and loneliness. And the most terrible thing, Alexander believes this voice. He feels like a deeply unhappy, misunderstood hero. He walks around the house like a ghost, poisoning the air with his heavy sighs. He waits for his wife to guess the depth of his suffering, fall to her knees, and redeem her guilt. But since she does not understand what is happening, after all, it is just cheese, the anima whispers to him. Look, she does not even see your pain. What callousness. This is possession. The man is seized by a mood. Logic has left the chat, and while the anima holds the helm, it is impossible to negotiate with Alexander because Alexander is not there. There is only his resentment grown to the size of the universe. Why then, when encountering such behavior, do you feel not just irritation, but exactly this specific sensation of dirt? Why, after trying to talk to him, do you want to take a shower? The answer lies in the mechanics of the lie that the anima creates. You see, if he just invented something that did not exist, a hallucination, you would easily discard it. You would say you are delirious and leave. But the anima acts more cunningly. She is a master of falsifications. Look at the story with the cheese. The cheese was indeed forgotten. This is a fact. This is the truth. But the anima takes this tiny fact and attaches a monstrous false interpretation to it. This means that she wishes me evil. This is the most dangerous lie in the world, a lie mixed with a grain of truth. It is what creates this feeling of dirt that is impossible to wash off. You feel trapped. You cannot deny the fact there is no cheese, and therefore you feel guilt. But your heart screams that the conclusion "I am not loved" is a lie. You find yourself in a double-bind situation. You are trying to justify yourself for a trifle, and you are being judged for a crime against humanity. That is why arguing with a man possessed by the anima is so sticky and nasty. You bring arguments to the fact, and he responds with emotion to the interpretation. You say, "I just got worn out," and he hears, "I do not give a damn about your feelings." At this moment, you must realize one liberating truth. You are not the addressee of his message. When he looks at you with his cold or offended gaze, he does not see you. The real woman who cooks soup works and loves him. He sees a screen onto which his anima projects her movie. You are for him now just a hanger on which he threw the costume of his inner dissatisfied witch. He is not fighting with you. He is conducting a dialogue with his own shadow, using you as scenery. Feel the difference. It is not you who are bad. It is his optics that are broken. That heaviness you feel, that emotional smog, is not your fault. These are the decay products of his own psyche, which he cannot digest and splashes out. You just happen to be in the affected zone. This realization must become your first line of defense. As soon as you understand, "I am not fighting with my husband right now, I am fighting with his projection," you stop taking this poison personally. You get out from under the blow. You stop making excuses to a ghost. Now that we see that before us is not a real situation, but a shadow theater, I want to ask you one more question. A question the answer to which can explain many senseless quarrels in your home. Have you noticed a strange pattern in these moments of possession? He is not looking for a solution to the problem. On the contrary, it seems that he does everything possible to escalate the conflict. He clings to words, he perverts the meaning of your phrases, he presses on the most painful points with surgical precision. He is like poking a sleeping beast with a stick trying to get a reaction. And here's the most important moment. Have you noticed what happens when you finally break down? When you cannot stand this pressure, when you start screaming, crying, or breaking plates? Paradoxically, at this moment, he often calms down. He may even look at you in surprise and say, "Well, here you are, hysterical again. It is impossible to talk to you. Why does this happen?" Here we encounter the frightening mechanics of emotional vampirism. The primitive anima is a clot of raw, wild emotional energy. She craves drama. She is bored in the world of logic and peace. She needs a storm. And if the man himself is not capable of living through his emotions and he suppresses them, his anima starts looking for a source of nutrition outside, and you become this source. The anima wants to get drunk on your reaction. She does not care what emotion it will be, fear, anger, resentment, or despair. The main thing is intensity. She needs a high voltage discharge. At the moment when you lose control, when your face turns red with anger or wet with tears, his inner demon smiles with satisfaction. He received his food. He provoked you to live through those emotions that the man himself is unable to live through. A kind of blood transfusion occurs. He dumps his internal tension into you, and while you are shaking with hysterics, he feels relief and superiority. This is a cruel game, but millions participate in it. We must map this territory, and I need your help. The anima is many-faced, and in every man she manifests in her own way. I want to ask you to go down to the comments and share your observations. This will help not only you to objectify the problem, but also hundreds of other women to understand that they are not alone. Write exactly how does this dirty weakness manifest in your man. What scenario does his anima choose? Is it the Ice King? Cold, arrogant silence, ignoring withdrawal into himself, a masked face from which grave cold blows? Or is it the Fire Dragon? Endless, ridiculous accusations, picking on everyday life, pettiness, outbursts of rage out of the blue, whining about how hard his life is. Perhaps you have your own unique example of how a strong man turns into a capricious creature. Describe this moment of transformation. Let us collect an encyclopedia of symptoms in the comments. When you write about it, you bring the demon into the light, and in the light, as is known, ghosts lose their power. I am waiting for your stories, and while you are writing, we move on to the most important thing: what to do with this. How not to become food for someone else's shadow. Before we move on to specific self-defense tools, we need to perform one mental operation. We need to change optics. Until this moment, you saw only an enemy in his dirty weakness. You saw in this a threat to your peace and your relationships. And this is natural. But wisdom begins where fear ends. Look at his state not as an attack, but as a symptom. When a man falls into this pit of mood, when he becomes unbearable, his soul is actually screaming SOS. His ego, his conscious part, has lost control. He has torn away from his roots, from his feelings, from living life. And the anima, this wild force of nature, has seized the empty throne. This bad mood is not just a whim. It is the emergency alarm of the psyche, reporting that the system is in critical imbalance. He is suffering. Even if outwardly he looks like a tyrant, inside, he is a lost traveler whose compass has broken. Carl Jung studied alchemy all his life. Medieval alchemists sought a way to turn lead into gold. But they knew a secret that we have forgotten: gold is not created from purity. It is extracted from dirt. Alchemists called this prima materia, first matter. They said that the philosopher's stone is hidden in vial, in something cheap, disgusting, dirty, that people throw in the trash. That psychic dirt with which your man stains the space is his first matter. These are his undigested feelings. This is his suppressed tenderness, which has turned sour and turned into sentimentality. This is his need for love, which, being rejected by himself, turned into demandingness. The paradox that is hard to accept sounds like this: dirt is gold that has not yet been purified. In this sticky, unpleasant substance lies the huge potential of his development. If he can realize and integrate this force, he will become not just a logical man, but a wise, deep-feeling person. His weakness is the reverse side of his potential greatness. This dirt is unpleasant, yes. Breathing this smog is hard. But it is in it that the seeds of his future growth are hidden. If he and you can see in this pile of manure, not just waste, but fertilizer for the soul. This understanding does not oblige you to tolerate humiliation, but it removes hatred. You stop looking at him as a villain. You start looking at him as a person carrying a heavy bag of raw ore, not knowing how to turn it into treasure. Now that we understand the nature of this energy, let us move on to safety measures. How to stand when this wave comes at you. Here, 90% of women make the same fatal tactical mistake. When a man falls into the state of the anima, becomes irrational, capricious, emotional, the woman instinctively tries to compensate for this. She turns on the man. In Jung's psychology, this is called animus possession. Your animus is your inner man. It is the spirit of logic, justice, opinions, and arguments. When you see his snot and tantrums, your animus instantly draws a sword. You become tough. You start pouring facts. You demand justice. You speak with the steel voice of a teacher. And at this moment, the trap slams shut. Jung described this as one of the most terrible situations in relationships: the battle of anima and animus. This is no longer a dialogue of two loving people. This is a war of two ancient archetypes. His anima capricious woman screams and spews poison. Your animus cruel judge chops this poison with the sword of logic. This is an endless war. It is impossible to win in it. The more logical and tougher you become, the more hysterical and dirtier he becomes. You polarize each other. You feed his demon with your toughness, and he feeds your demon with his stupidity. The secret of victory here is paradoxical. You must drop the sword. The main internal work at this moment is not to let your animus seize power over your tongue. Do not try to prove to him that he is wrong. Do not try to call him to order. Do not preach morality. As soon as you take out your sword of logic to answer his poison, you have lost. You have entered a battle of ghosts. You have left your territory, the territory of feelings, wisdom, and empathy, and went out onto the battlefield where you are now weaker because you are playing by the rules of war and not love. Your task is to remain in your female center. This requires huge discipline. This is the position of the warrior of the spirit. You see that he is not himself. You feel the desire to hit him with the truth in response to his lie. But you take a breath and do not do it. You do not get involved. You do not connect to his madness. You become transparent to his attacks. Let his anima scream she has nothing to catch on to if you do not expose the sharp corners of your rightness. Do not feed the demon with your reaction. Remain a woman, calm, feeling grounded. Do not turn into a prosecutor man trying to fix a hysterical man. Keep your polarity, and then the storm will subside because it will have no one to fight with. So you kept your sword in the scabbard. You did not turn on the teacher and did not start arguing. But what to do? Silently tolerate. Leave. No, you must give an answer, but from a different point. We will call this method the mirror technique. The essence is simple. Instead of reacting to the content of his words to the delirium about cheese or your ingratitude, you react to his state. You become a calm mirror that shows him not his arguments, but his emotional facade. Here is your main script. Remember this formula: validation of feeling, Prehler's boundary of form. When he starts pouring his dirty weakness on you, you look him in the eyes calmly without challenge and say, I see that you feel very bad, hurt heavy right now. I hear that you are upset, but I will not talk to you in such a tone. It destroys us. Let us talk when this passes. Look at what you did. First, you did not reject him. You said, I see your pain. This soothes his hysterical anima, which screams from loneliness. Second, you set a tough boundary. I will not accept this poison. This returns dignity to you. There is an even more powerful level of this technique: objectification, or naming the demon. In Jungian psychology, there is a rule: as long as the content of the unconscious is not named, it controls us. As soon as we give it a name, it loses power. Try to separate his mood from his personality. Speak about his state as a third person, as an uninvited guest. Say calmly, it seems a very heavy mood visited us today, or it seems to me that not my husband is speaking now, but his fatigue. Call the demon by name. Say calmly, I see that something dark, sticky possesses you right now. As soon as the shadow is named, it loses half of its power. You force his ego, his observer, to wake up and look at himself from the side. He may flare up even brighter for a second, but the process of disidentification has already been launched. A critically important nuance tone. All this will work only if there is no sarcasm, arrogance, or mommy condescension in your voice. Sarcasm is also a weapon of the animus. Your voice must be even a little boring, earthy. This is the voice of a person who sees a storm outside the window, states the fact of the storm, but is not going to go out into the street without an umbrella. Preserving your own dignity, not sliding into reciprocal hysterics, and not trying to cure him with logic, you do more for him than any psychotherapist. You give him the experience that his dirt did not destroy you and did not force you to become just as dirty. You remained clean, and this is the best beacon for him to find the way back to himself. I know that now you may have a question: why me? Why should I tolerate this? Why should I be wise while he behaves like a child? This is a fair rebellion. But let me show you the other side of this coin. Your ability to withstand his dirty weakness without being destroyed, without answering with aggression, and without taking it personally is not a sign of your submissiveness. It is the highest form of female power. In psychology, this is called containment. It is the ability of the psyche to contain unbearable tension without spilling it and without bursting. This is a rare, almost magical gift. When he brings you his lead, his heaviness, his darkness, his undigested fears, he unconsciously looks for a place where this metal can be melted down. He himself cannot cope. His furnace is cold. And if you do not get involved in the war but maintain a calm, loving, but firm presence, you become an alchemical vessel for him. You create a hermetic space in which his lead can burn and turn into the gold of awareness. Your calmness is that fire which transforms his hysteria into wisdom. But here is a critically important condition. You must clearly distinguish two roles, the role of the sponge and the role of the vessel. The sponge absorbs dirt into itself. It becomes just as dirty, heavy, and toxic as what it wipes. The sponge is a victim. If you feel that after his outbursts you are sick, it means you are a sponge. You let his poison into your blood. The vessel is different. The vessel is made of tempered glass or stone. It holds the substance inside but does not mix with it. The walls of the vessel remain clean. You are not a sponge that absorbs dirt. You are an alchemical vessel in which this dirt can burn and turn into light. To be a vessel, you yourself must be whole. You cannot contain someone else's chaos if you have emptiness or cracks inside. Your main task is not to save him, but to take care of the strength of your own walls. Fill yourself. Know your value. When you stand before his storm and do not move, you teach him the most important lesson in his life. You show him that chaos can be withstood. And one day, looking at you, he will learn to do it himself. This is the great hidden work of a woman to heal space with her presence. We have come a long way. We started with the feeling of sticky dirt in the kitchen and end at the alchemical crucible of the soul. Now that you have a map, you can see the whole picture. Let us gather all the threads into a single knot of truth. That dirty weakness of a man which has poisoned your life for years is not just a bad character. It is a tragic projection. The dirtiest weakness of a man is his inability to love his own soul. In the modern world, men are forbidden to look inside themselves, and his soul, his anima, stands at the closed doors of his heart like a beggar asking for attention. When he rejects her, she turns into a fury. And then he does what all people do who are unable to carry their cross. He shifts this task onto you. He projects his need for warmth, for acceptance, for depth onto the woman nearby. His whims, his poisonous words, his cold silence are an encrypted cry for help distorted beyond recognition. This does not justify his cruelty, but it explains its nature. Now you know the secret: he is not a monster. He is a wounded king who forgot the language of love and now speaks the language of pain. And every time he tries to prick you, he is actually screaming, "I am scared. I lost myself." See the real me behind this ugly mask. You are no longer blind. You see this cipher, and this knowledge forever changes the rules of the game. And now I want you to close your eyes for a second and imagine what your relationships might look like when you integrate this knowledge. Imagine a home where there is no longer fear of a change in weather. Yes, storms will come. This is inevitable while we are alive. But imagine that in the center of this storm you stand, not like a frightened girl hiding under the table, and not like a furious mother screaming at the thunder. You stand like a rock. The waves of his mood beat against your foot. The foam of his emotions flies into your face. But you do not move. You are calm. You know that it is just water. You are not destroyed. You do not absorb. You do not attack in return. And a miracle happens. The man, seeing your incredible mystical calmness, suddenly stops. His demon not receiving nourishment quiets down. He looks at you and for the first time sees not an object for beating, but a lighthouse. He sees your power, that very female power that he lacks so much. And through this contemplation, he begins to learn. Your silent dignity becomes a lesson for him. He begins to understand how to cope with his demons without destroying everything around. He begins to grow up. Jung called this hieros gamos, sacred marriage. This is a union where two do not merge into a single swamp of codependency, but where two help each other become whole, where your wisdom contains his chaos and his strength protects your peace. This is not a fairy tale. This is the result of hard internal work. This is the path from the war of the sexes to the union of souls. And this path is open to you. I will not lie to you, this path is difficult. It is much easier to get offended. It is much easier to slam the door, or conversely swallow the resentment and cry quietly into the pillow. It takes colossal courage not to answer evil with evil. It takes a lioness's heart to meet dirt and turn it into gold with your calmness. But you are here. You watched this video to the end. Most people turned it off at the 10th minute, running to look for quick tricks and secret phrases of manipulation. The tourists left. Only the seekers remained. If you hear my voice now, it means you belong to a rare circle of women. You are those who do not agree to glide on the surface. You are those who are ready to look into the abyss to find light there. Feel this unity. Right now, in different corners of the world, thousands of other women just like you are taking this breath. They also decide to stop being victims of circumstances and become mistresses of their soul. You are not alone in this battle. We are an invisible legion of those who chose awareness instead of automatism. Your pain was the door you entered, but you will leave it not as who you were an hour ago. We have only started digging up this giant archive of the human soul. The topic of the anima is just the tip of the iceberg. Under it lie layers of the shadow, the persona, the self, an ocean in which answers to all your questions about love, fate, and meaning are hidden. If you feel that this language resonates with you, if you are tired of pop psychology that treats symptoms with a band-aid, if you want to understand the deep laws governing your life to stop being a chip in the stream, take this step. Subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, but do it not for my sake. Do it as a promise to yourself, a promise not to stop. We are not having fun here. We are building a bridge to the unconscious, and every new step on this bridge makes you stronger, clearer, freer. Carl Jung left us a phrase that should become the motto of your new life. Remember it. Write it on the mirror. Live with it. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Stop sleeping. Stop looking at his behavior. Look inside. Your awakening begins today. See you on the other side.